Now, a bit of a change in topic, but something I wanted to talk to you about. So your book, correct me if I'm wrong, is called When She Makes More.
Yes.
Tell me about that. It's a provocative title.
Yes. So When She Makes More is a book that was born out of me wanting to write a book for women that had something to do with money. But I was like, okay, there's a lot of great books out there already for women and money. And I wanted to sort of take the conversation to a place where it hadn't ever been before. And I remembered something that my English teacher once told me, which was write what you know. And I know very well what it's like to be the breadwinner in my marriage. And I also felt that this was something that I couldn't just casually talk about with people, that it was something that was actually a bit of a, but not between us, a point of contention, my husband and I, but my mom had a real problem with this. She
Really?
was like,
Why?
well, I think that like a lot of parents from an older generation who maybe had the very traditional marriage, and also my mother and father were Middle Eastern, and so there's a cultural expectation too that he is going to take care of you. And no matter how much money she makes, that because women have the babies, that there is probably going to be a need. Perception is that there might be a need for her to step out of her career to take care of the kids for a while, which happens. And so if you're the breadwinner and you're not working to take care of your kids for, even if it's just 3 months, 4 months, what happens to the household? There was a
Right.
sense of insecurity that my mom thought was going to transpire. And I was like, relax, whatever, mom. And we actually had, it was problematic between the two of us because we could not see eye to eye on this. And then I just thought, why is this so difficult, right? And I cannot be the only person that's experiencing this. And that, the experiences and the complexities that couples face when she makes more are very all over the place. There's couples that have said to me, men have said, I feel emasculated. Women feel resentful. They don't know how to communicate around this. Money is already a point of challenge for many couples. And then you add to it this additional twist, which is she making more, which is not culturally still. We think we're a very progressive country, but when we study people and we ask them who should be at the helm of finance in a relationship, most Americans, men and women, say it should be the guy's responsibility. So there is this cultural patriarchal expectation that he is going to necessarily be the sort of provider, financial provider. And when he is not, there is this feeling of like, what is my purpose? How do we make this work? And I wanted to tackle all that because I thought, here's a lot of stuff that no one's talking about or answering. So for me, it was really, a personal exercise in trying to find answers for my own relationship, but through that, apparently helping a lot of other women and men as well.
Did your husband take the lead in a lot of the child rearing?
We were very much and still are a team. I would say that to the extent that he could take time off work, he did. I work for myself versus he works for an employer, so a little different in terms of our capacity to be home. But one of the things I recognized early on in my post becoming a mom, and this is important for everybody, I think you have to rewrite your rules in your marriage as it seems fit for the needs of the family at that point. That you can't expect that like you got married and you had all these expectations and then your life changed, your finances change, your family changes. Well, you have to change sort of like the way that you provide in the marriage, and that shifts and it evolves and it's a constant dialogue. And that's like kind of rule number one, because a lot of couples don't even discuss it because it's uncomfortable, and then that brews resentment and confusion and there was more likelihood for divorce when a woman is making more in the relationship. Okay, so that was also why I wanted to write the book and help these marriages. But to your question, I recognize that for me to be able to kind of get back into my career at the pace that I was at, now with a child as well, that, my husband and I had to sort of redefine our roles in the marriage. And one of the opportunities that women have that we don't exercise enough is asking for help and telling our spouses how they can be the most important person in our lives. We forget that. And so I told him what would really make a huge difference is if we could change our hours, like our hours for working. Like if you could maybe go to work earlier in the day, but come home earlier so that I could work later, it made the world a difference, because I was trying to get everything done in the 6 hours that I had between like childcare coming to my house and and then leaving. And it wasn't enough. It was proving to be not enough, because also like, yes, I work from home and maybe that should mean I have more flexibility, but I had a lot of work too.
Yeah.
And just because you do that, so I think that one shift of having my husband be able to come home at 4 or 5 o'clock, and then we can make a game time decision, like who's going to be with Evan and who can go back to work. Sometimes it was him, sometimes it was me, but I needed that flexibility as opposed to like those 2 hours of just being me with the child. By the time my husband got home, I was spent. And I would lie to myself and say, oh, I'll just pick up the work when Evan goes to sleep. And I was basically a basket case by the end of the night. Like I just, tired, emotionally strained, all of it. So I knew that I had to maximize the work day. And the way that I could do that was to make sure that my partner had a schedule that kind of was in sync with me.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I always I don't know if you ever see these, they go around on Twitter a lot when they blow up on Reddit, those like our relationships, or like, am I the asshole? Those like subreddits where people are asking questions about their relationship to like get a neutral take on it. And so many of them are women being like, my husband literally will go to the bathroom for an hour at a time to avoid like dinner time or bath time. And I'm like, ladies, like, I would murder him. Like there's no way. And it's funny because I remember what was always so jarring. I was a nanny and an au pair for a long, long time. So full-time childcare for people. And there were so many interesting dynamics in that, because obviously the vast majority of the families I was working for were quite well off. So that in and of itself was just like, a little bit of a like Darwinian study in just like class dynamics and all of that. But what always really stuck out to me was how culpable the mother always seemed around needing to have childcare at all, like wanting to help me, like feeling very much like one of the women I worked for, she worked at home in a home office, and she was constantly coming out and like doing things, and they would always feel so apologetic if they were 15 minutes late, and just felt this really strong sense of, I'm so sorry that you have to do this. And the husbands did not give a shit. They were like, if they came home at 8:30 at night and like managed to like, put a little macaroni in the kids' mouths, they were like, I'm father of the year. And I was like, and they just showed zero interest in, not interest, but to them it was like, well, of course we have a nanny. Of course we have a night nurse. Of course we have this person who does, the vast majority of the child rearing during the waking hours. And for the mother, it was always such a complex kind of relationship. And I think that speaks so highly to what we tell men about being fathers and women about being mothers, as if for the man, and this is obviously reinforced in the workplace, it's reinforced in their social dynamics, that like them doing some of the basics of child rearing is exceptional, or doing a favor to their wife.
So then, Chelsea, you flip that on its head and you have the woman who's making more, who's still at the forefront of all that child rearing and guilting and all of it. And it creates a problem.
Oh, yeah.
It's solvable, I'd like to think. But part of what has to happen first of all, she needs to let loose a little bit and not just sort of drop the ball. It's okay. You don't have to double time with the nanny while she's there, or like stop feeling so guilty. But he also needs to recognize that the childcare is there for everybody, everyone's benefit. And I can't stand it how often I hear like when women say, well, I left working. I quit my job after I had a child because when we did the math, my income was basically the cost of childcare. And I was like, were you the only one who was benefiting from childcare? As far as I remember, you were married and you had a husband.
Right.
So why not say that childcare is a percentage of our combined income? It's less guilt driven at that point. It's less like, it's less of like, oh, obviously I have to quit my job at that point, right? Because everyone's benefiting. I think that that's really terrible math when we put it all on the women's response. Like we so associate childcare with women in this country. It's unfortunate. And even like you said, when they go to work, our corporate America is still very patriarchal, where
Totally.
they don't realize that like a female executive might be the sole breadwinner in her family. And so she inadvertently, it's microaggressions. Like she might not get the promotion because the boss thinks, well, the guy probably is the breadwinner and she's
Right.
not. Does she really need it as much? And I'm quoting actual things that have been told to my girlfriends when they go in for a promotion and they're like, do you really need it?
How do you not like cell block Tango and murder these
Oh my
guys?
gosh.
I hate him.